I'm Fraser. I'm going to be presenting Live Coder. Live Coder shows how your code runs as you type. So what problem does this solve? Well, right now as coders, we can't see how our code runs. Instead, we're programming blind, being forced to imagine how our code would execute if it was ran on a computer. And this takes a ton of time and energy away from our developers. But if our computer's running our code, why doesn't the computer just show us how it runs? So at the bottom left here, we have a simple search function. Now you can't immediately see how this code runs, you have to picture it. So the solution is to show program execution alongside your code. This is updated live, giving coders constant feedback as to what their updates are doing. So at the bottom left, the same search function is being written in Live Coder, and we can immediately get a sense of what the updates are doing. And yeah, we get a clear idea of how it happens. This is run across your whole project. It syncs scrolling and file changes, so you always know what your code is doing. It works by aggregating your unit tests, which you can easily select between and then run. As you see, as we select this different unit test, we can see how it changes the execution. If a function's called multiple times, we can easily just click between the different calls. So this works as a VS Code editor extension. It's free to use and it's open source. I started work on this just 2 months ago and launched it last week, and it already has 132 installed users and counting. I hope in the future that this can replace existing debuggers and create a new programming paradigm where instead of coding and then debugging, we're always debugging as we code. And I should also note that this could be applied to generally all programming languages. Yeah, that's me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Fraser. Would love to hear what inspired this. Was this a frustration working on a particular project and you're like, I need to get this, I'm tired of running this function and not knowing what it's going to do, or what kicked this off?
Yeah, it was that. I was working with this sort of complex data structure, and I was constantly having to sort of add in print statements and add in breakpoints. I had to really see what my updates and the different functions were doing. And I then just thought oh, I wish I could just see how it changed at every step.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think there's a way in which we're still engineering in IDEs that look like they did 10 years ago, except maybe with some better bells and whistles. And I think there's a shift that can happen here around dynamic execution and knowing what's going on. I'd love to know how you're getting the word out about it. So is there a VS Code extension store? Are you telling your friends? Are they telling their friends? How do you want to spread this thing?
So right now I've been using Reddit and a few group chats. I've had a top post on a couple of popular programming subreddits. And I've also got there's this sort of future of coding community that I've sort of are on board and given me some good feedback.
Anything surprising or interesting? Your favorite piece of feedback so far?
The main thing is how I need to stress more that it's supposed to replace your debugger. A lot of people think it's oh, it's neat, maybe if I was trying to use a new code base, but it's kind of I think when you use it all the time, it sort of changes how you code.
One thing that was interesting in Instagram was us developing faster and faster ways of closing that gap between I have an idea, I'm implementing in code, I'm seeing if it worked. We even had our iOS app dynamically reload as you coded in Xcode so that you didn't have to go through that full build and compile cycle. So I think that is, one of the biggest drivers for engineer productivity is how long is that gap?
Yeah, definitely.
What do you imagine as next steps?
So next step is just to sort of prove I have product market fit. Can I make this a popular tool just for Python with unit tests? And then if I get that, I hope to add new languages and add new testing frameworks and just kind of make it a general tool. Cool.
And how can people help who are listening live?
Well, you can try the extension and you can sort of DM me on Twitter, or I think I put an email address on the page, and just give me your feedback.
Do you imagine building this out into a sort of suite of programmer productivity tools? Is this kind of vertical a passion area of yours?
It is a passion of mine. Yeah, I've been working on this sort of description to code parser just before that. So so I probably will be making other developer tools in the future.
It is a much needed, but also rare interest in people. I guess not so rare, there are subreddits on there, but I always loved our internal teams that were focused on engineer productivity. The leverage there is huge. Cool. All right. Cool. Thank you so much, Fraser.
Thanks.